Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad podcast with Chris Finn, a production of P4S Golf. Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. I'm your host, Chris Finn, and I'm here with my main man, Bobby, the director of research here at P4S Golf. And it's not often that you text me saying we need to do a podcast. So
it's very rare. Enjoy it when it happens.
So I'm just gonna let you take it because this is literally, ladies and gentlemen, the first I've known Bobby for years, since the early days of P4S Golf. Bobby texting me to do media does not occur until today. So what are we talking about today, Bobby?
So we want to talk a little bit about the ball rollback. And I just want to kind of set the stage. We're going to start off with like why I think this is just the completely wrong thing to do in the first place. And then let's give some people some hope that this is not the end of their golf game. This is not the destruction of golf. There is hope at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So obviously with the ball rollback, right, the USGA and the RNA have come to the conclusion based on their data that
for those of you listening, he's doing air quotes around data.
Yeah. That the people are just hitting the ball too far. Right. The concern is that these old historic courses are becoming irrelevant to golf. And the solution is to make the golf ball just fly less. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing right off the bat that I like to bring facts to emotional arguments here. Mm-hmm. Right. Is
you definitely are the least emotional person I've ever met.
It's like, first of all, if this was actually a problem, let's just start with this. The longest hitters in the world would be winning every single tournament, right? If distance truly was an issue and it was ruining the game of golf, then the PGA Tour would be dominated by the guys who are at the World Long Drive Contest, right? Heck, the winner's circle would just be the PGA Tour guys who hit the ball the furthest. And that's already not the case.
Definitely not the case.
No. So aside from that, right, my second gripe is that if they really wanted to change things, right, one of the complaints they have is these courses have to buy all this land and make the courses longer, and they got to put out new tee boxes. They're not even using the tee boxes that are already out there at most of these courses.
It's very true.
Okay, so my two best examples, I could go on for hours on this alone. We'll just keep it at two.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, for the interest of the listener, let's bring that down.
Okay. So the PGA Championship a few years ago over at Kiowa, right? Ocean course. Okay.
Great course.
That course already has tees that make the course play at about 7,800 yards, which is ridiculous, right? That's an incredibly long course, and it's already a challenging course.
Correct.
Did they play that tournament at that yardage any of the 4 rounds?
I've heard this tone in your voice before, and I'm going to go, no. That's my guess.
No, they didn't, right? The longest that course played the whole time was 7,600 yards.
So they still had an extra 200 yards. You know, the interesting thing, too, out of their own, the USGA's and the RNA's, the actual report on all of this, the average golf course throughout the last 50 years has actually shrunk.
The land.
Like an acre to 2 acres. Yeah.
Right. So they're actually using less land.
Yeah.
They're not having to buy more land to create these long tee boxes. Here's another one. I got to play the stadium course at PGA West about a month ago.
Yep.
Really fun. The guy who was the starter, right? He was asking us, hey, you know, what tees are you all thinking about playing? Me and my buddies played from the whites. No problem at all with that, right?
How far are the whites?
It was around 6,200 yards.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
Right? So, but again, this is one of the hardest courses. We really didn't need to challenge my driver that day. We were going to have a good time. We don't need to be challenging my driver on a tight Pete Dye course.
No, yeah.
That's just not a recipe for fun.
That was a smart decision.
Yes. I've gotten wiser at that, right?
Sometimes.
Well, so here's the funny thing. The guy even said, like, hey, when the American Express Championship is here in a couple months, he said most of the holes are actually played from the blue tees.
Which are what?
About 6,800 yards.
Oh, wow.
The tips are about 7,200.
So again, not using the full course.
Not even using the full course.
Right.
And so I kind of jokingly asked, I was like, if anybody waltzes up here and is like, I've got to play from the tips, like, do you take them out back and beat some sense into them? The best players in the world aren't even playing from those tee boxes.
Yeah.
Right? So again, like, we could go more and more, but they're not even using the length that exists.
You're definitely making a compelling case that is distance actually an issue.
No, it's not. I think the other thing that you see in these arguments from people is they're sick of watching bomb and gouge golf, right? Which is guys blasting driver and then guys hitting wedges into greens.
Right.
And there's some emotional argument about, back in the day, guys had to hit a 5-iron and shape their shot into some green because the ball spun and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That's just not factual in the slightest in two ways. One, I think the tournament golf presentation on TV is very biased because they're usually showing the people that are in contention.
That's my favorite when you're playing golf with a 10 or 15 handicap and they miss a 20-footer for birdie. And they're like, oh my God. Or like, dude, do you understand the make percentage is like less than 10% on tour?
For the best in the world.
Yeah, or like a 200-yard par 3. And a guy, well, they even hit the green, but like, let's say the pin is on the right side and they hit it on the left side. So they got maybe, 30 feet.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm like, dude, you understand that's like pretty close to the dispersion from 200 yards? Like, that's actually pretty good. That was actually a really great shot.
Yeah. It's just very skewed, right? Yeah. And they're like, well, all these guys are, just hitting driver, hitting wedge, hitting driver, hitting wedge. I'm like, you're only watching a handful of people that are in contention. You didn't see the other 120 people, 60 some odd didn't make the cut, right? And then the other 60 that made the cut but aren't in contention, you're not seeing what their game is. It's a lot of missed greens. It's a lot of, my ball's in the rough. I have to chunk out with a 6-iron. Again, I could go on and on about this.
But I think for me, the thing that gets me is there's a lot of talk. A lot of the talk about this is growing the game. And I forget who I heard talking. Who's like, well, I want Rory's kids to come and still have the same golf courses. And Rory's kids. And like, so when you think about growth of the game, a lot of the talk is about junior golf and getting new players into the game. Yeah. And rightfully so. And I always look at this from like business sides of things. Like there's 3 elements. You can grow something by getting more people in, by getting the people that are already in to buy more, or by obviously charging more, right?
Yeah.
So the golf has no problem charging more, so that just continues to go up. But I always look at getting people in, and I feel like that is where a lot of the discussion around golf is on TV, the commentators, the USGA.
Make it more accessible.
Right. We got to make it more accessible. And there's nothing wrong with that. I totally agree with it 100%.
Yeah.
Went to Drive Shack the other day with my kids and like walking down to our bay, like there is not a single person I'm ever going to see at a golf course, but they're playing golf and they're having fun. And that's great. That's great for growing the game. But I think the part of the rollback that actually impacts the other part of growing the game that nobody talks about is when people like 65-year-old John, 75-year-old Al, it's going to impact those guys the most. And the number one reason why those guys stop playing is because the game's no longer fun.
Yeah.
And the number one way to make a game not fun is to make you have to hit 3-wood into every freaking green or a hybrid into every freaking green. And people say, well, just move up a tee box.
Right.
Well, if John 65, part of it is the social aspect, right?
Yeah.
So if 65-year-old John is playing the white tees at 5,800, right, with his buddies, is he going to move up to the ladies' tees, 5,200, while his other buddies like play from the?
No.
No, that's not going to happen. That's the other thing with golf course setup is there's usually such a big difference.
Right.
Like maybe he needs like a hybrid of those two, but he doesn't want to play the senior lady hybrids, right?
Right.
And so, to me, when I look at the golf ball rollback, I look at you're not impacting the pros because 5 to 10 yards, they're going to figure it out. It's not going to be an issue at all.
Right.
I'm sure you have a list of every way they're going to figure that out, right?
We'll get to that one.
Right. You're not impacting the junior players. You're not impacting the high-level amateurs because similarly, they're going to figure it out.
Right.
But who you are negatively impacting are probably the biggest part of the game, particularly when we're talking about financially, supporting the $100,000 initiation clubs, supporting, going out on the golf trips and spending thousands and thousands of dollars. How many years are you cutting those guys' golf lives by? And how many dollars is that? Where nobody wants to talk about the dollars in golf, but dollars are what keep the thing moving, right? And those guys spend money at the course, which pays the golf professional. And they go on the lessons, they buy the clubs, they buy the balls, and then apparently they're going to have to pay for balls that don't go as far, right? So I think that to me, when I look at this, that is where my mind goes, is like there's already all these people already who are struggling for distance and who already are, being pulled into gain more speed, and they're getting hurt because they don't have the mobility to gain the speed, right?
Right.
And now this is only going to perpetuate my fear more of the wrong side of things on that end of the growth of the game.
100%. I think it's a weird science experiment, and you listen to ball manufacturers, right? And they're kind of going, wait a second, the USGA and RNA are pulling these numbers kind of out of thin air, saying, "Oh, it's this."
Nobody's
ball.
actually ever even made the ball. These are all theories,
right? So there's no way to say, "Hey, this ball is going to affect your high speed player 10% and your low speed player 5%." Right?
I liken it to spreadsheet math.
It's a theoretical idea, but no one's actually gone and done it.
It's like when you look at your budget at the beginning of the year, you're like, "Oh, we're going to make so much money. I'm so rich on Excel." And then the actual year happens, and oh wait, that didn't exactly go according to plan.
You have a plan, and then it goes awry, right? Yeah. These governing bodies don't necessarily understand the technology and how it's going to affect people, right? They're just
the people
guessing
who know the
point.
technology don't know the technology,
right? And they're kind of looking at it and going, "I don't know if that's how this is going to work." So it's not. My big point is, one, I don't even think this is a problem. I don't think distance is a problem in golf. Then if you're going to fix the distance equation, right, this isn't really the best way to go about it, because like you said, you're hurting people who are the majority of your golf game. They're the majority of the livelihood of your sport.
Yeah.
Right. But let's give people some hope. All right. So you kind of talked about it. You're scared, and I'm scared as well, right? That people say, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose 5% of my distance. I got to go do speed training so that I can get faster."
I mean, if there is a silver lining in this for us, a lot of people are going to get hurt. So, I mean, as much as I hate to say that, like, it's just funny being somebody who look at this and I'm like, wow, this is probably actually good for my business.
Right.
At the same time, like, this is a terrible idea.
Well, so let's give people some help, because my big thing is, no, obviously we have the data. If you just go and you chase the distance, you're not going to have a great time, right? You're probably going to get hurt at the worst. At the best, you're probably just not going to get any results that stick around whatsoever, right? So our big thing is, yes, this is great for the physical aspect of golf, right? If the ball is going to take 5-10% away from me, my response, right, that I joke with you is, well, heck, I got until 2030.
Thanks for the 6 years.
Right. To build up to, I'll swing 135 miles an hour if I need to keep my distance, right? I want to hit the ball the same distance. So I'm just going to get faster. And that's where, like, okay, maybe for me, the speed training might be the right idea. I have to work on my flexibility, my mobility, all that good stuff, right? But
if anybody's ever listened to you before, your shoulders suck.
Yeah, they're getting better. But it's like, what can people do so they don't get hurt? Don't go chase that speed training. Figure out if you have the mobility restrictions. You have 6 years to fix this so that you can actually come up ahead rather than be, negatively affected by this distance rollback.
Well, I think that's the big thing that I think we want people to hear is the average person, if you address your mobility and your rotary, not like your hamstring length, like touching your toes, like do your hips rotate, do your shoulders rotate, does your spine rotate, does your neck rotate? You address those areas. You then go get stronger in the right areas so that your safe swing speed is actually higher than where your current swing speed is.
Yeah.
You create a nice healthy gap, and this, it's a speed opportunity. Then you go after speed training.
Right.
The average person in 12 weeks picks up 3 miles an hour. That's 10 yards, folks.
Right.
The average person in the next, I gotta do my math here, 40 weeks.
Right. So 52 is your total.
So at the end of the year, they pick up another 3 miles an hour, right? So we're looking at somewhere in 5 to 8 mile an hour range. You're looking at, at least 10 yards, some, 15 to 20 for most people at the end of a year.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, now you can maintain. And the other interesting data that we have is if you look at people generationally, decade over decade, if you're not doing anything, is it 10 yards a decade?
It's 1% every year.
So you're losing 1% every year. So 10% over 10 years.
Yep.
But if you do the right stuff, you're actually going to pick up more than that. You've probably, in 1 year of doing the right stuff, and I have my fact checker here on the math side.
If I go,
in 1 year of doing the right stuff, you could effectively negate 15 years of loss. Like just let that sit. In 1 year of doing the right stuff, you can negate 15 years of loss. And And if we throw a ball rollback in there, maybe it's only 10 years plus. So you can negate a decade and a ball rollback of loss.
Right.
From 1 year. And that's to me the crazy thing when you brought this up is like, yeah, that is kind of a stupid change because it's very easily fixed.
Oh, it's very easily fixed. That's
me, Leland just thinks that we have a marketing problem that the USGA and RNA don't know how easy this problem is to fix.
That's my biggest thing is, even if this was a problem, it's like, this is kind of a silly solution because it is so easy to overcome this if you're doing the right things, right? If you know how to improve your flexibility, if you're working on that strength and power, like we've talked about, if you get to the point where you're safe to do speed training, right? We know that you're going to make amazing results. And so it's like, you've got a 6-year head start before this ball even gets out there. Mm-hmm. By the time that comes around, you should actually be defeating the ball rollback. And then they're going to have to do what? Start all over again? Yeah, who knows?
I don't know. All I know is I think we've probably said all there is that needs to be said at this point.
Yeah.
So anyway, hopefully you guys found that, hopefully you enjoyed and truly value what it is to spend 15 minutes with Bobby Prengle on a media appearance that he insinuated, because I'm not sure this will happen again for another decade. This may not happen again until after the ball rollback.
Well, look, they might realize that the ball rollback was stupid, and then they're going to start trying to regulate the loftier club. Okay.
Oh,
I really can't wait until they're like, no, Bryson, excuse me, sir, you swung too fast. I'm going to need you to slow down. Right? Like, I need them to have a radar on the tee box where like a rules official comes out and just like, excuse me, sir, you swung too fast.
You got to re-hit that.
We can't have fun in golf.
Yes.
You hit it too far. No fun allowed.
You need to go home.
Penalty. Swung too fast.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you listening. Hopefully diffuse a few bombs that you may have had in your mind about the ball rollback, what this could potentially mean for you. Net all said to say, if you do the right stuff for literally a year, not only do you negate the ball rollback, but you also probably negate 10 years of loss. You add basically 10 years of life to your golf game. So that is all that needs to be said. So hopefully you guys got a good amount out of this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.